The galaxy was crumbling, its oldest alliance on the brink of defeat, when a desperate call was sent to Earth, an untested planet that had never fought a galactic war. Against all odds, humanity answered. But what no one expected was how fast they would rise, and how everything would change the moment their ships entered the battlefield. In just hours, legends would be born, enemies would fall, and the fate of the stars would hang in the balance. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. The stars no longer shimmered with wonder. They glared like silent witnesses to the fall of a once great alliance. Across the galaxy, the Interstellar Union, a coalition of worlds forged in peace, was losing the war. For nearly 30 years, the cruel and methodical Vathari Empire had expanded its reach, leaving only ruin behind. Their ships burned through planetary shields like paper, and their machines marched over every defense line the coalition built. One by one, member worlds crumbled. What had begun as resistance was now retreat. And the coalition, once proud and powerful, stood on the edge of collapse. In the Alliance Hall on Syrah, a planet barely holding the title of capital anymore, leaders from the remaining worlds gathered. The chamber was dim, the light from the great skylight filtered by smoke drifting in from nearby battle zones. Delegates sat in silence, their eyes tired, their hopes nearly gone. General Goric Ran, from the icy world of Theris, leaned on the long war table with heavy hands. His voice, deep and gravelly, cut through the silence. We are losing. More than just battles. We're losing our will to fight. Across from him stood Orlan Jet, the last appointed envoy of the Alliance. His coat was frayed at the shoulders, his face lined from years of diplomatic failure, but his voice still held strength. There is one option left, he said quietly. We ask Earth for help. Murmurs broke out like fire through dry grass. Earth, humans, had never joined the galactic stage. Isolated by choice, they had watched from afar while others fought. Their refusal to get involved had frustrated many. They had technology, growing quickly and uniquely. They had energy, but they had no experience, no battle scars. To many in the room, they were untested dreamers. General Rand grunted, folding his arms. We've fought for decades. They've fought nothing but their own history. What could humans possibly offer that we haven't already tried? Orlan didn't flinch. Hope, he replied, and the kind of thinking that doesn't come from centuries of war. The Vathari know all our moves, they don't know Earth's. Despite protest, the vote passed. There was nothing else left. Earth was the final card. 3 days later, a single, sleek vessel left the Syrah system, bound for the blue planet, at the edge of the Orion Spur. The ship held Orlan Jet and a team of diverse ambassadors, one with skin like glass, another with 6 arms and eyes that changed color with mood. Each represented a dying world, and each carried a message of desperation. As the ship entered Earth's orbit, cameras from every continent turned skyward. Humanity, for the first time, saw beings from beyond their skies arrive not with weapons but with a plea. At the United Earth headquarters in Geneva, Chief Diplomatic Officer Chava Solon paced behind the massive desk that overlooked Lake Lehman. She had read the reports, watched the footage, and spoken with her advisors. But nothing could have prepared her for the arrival of Orlan and the coalition delegation. When they entered the hall, silence fell. The room, usually filled with chatter and debate, became still. These were not conquerors. They were survivors. Orlan stepped forward, his voice calm but urgent. He spoke of burning cities, of screaming children pulled from rubble, of once proud civilizations now begging for a chance to fight back. He showed them holograms of destruction so severe that entire moons had been cracked open like eggshells. He did not ask for charity. He asked for unity. When he finished, the room remained quiet. Then Chava spoke. You ask us to send our ships, our soldiers, to fight in a war not of our making. Why should we risk our people? Orlan looked directly at her. Because this war will come to Earth one day, and when it does, you'll face it alone. But if you stand with us now, We can stop it before it spreads further. Humanity has always surprised those who underestimate them. Surprise us, again. The council met through the night. Scientists discussed compatibility with alien systems. Military leaders considered tactical training. Economists weighed the cost. But the final decision didn't come from calculations. It came from watching people. The people of Earth, ordinary citizens, took to the streets in support. Online, messages of solidarity flooded in. Images of ruined worlds sparked something deep in humanity, not just fear but empathy. By morning, the message was clear. Earth would not stand by, they would stand with. Chava Solon made the announcement herself. Her voice was calm but carried weight. We will not turn away from those who ask for help. Earth will join the alliance. Across the stars, the signal went out. And in far-off war rooms, weary eyes lifted in surprise. Humanity had stepped into the galaxy's greatest conflict, and nothing would be the same again. Orlan stood once more at the window of his ship, now orbiting Earth's moon. He watched as Earth's first fleet began to assemble. Their ships were new, untested, but filled with promise. He whispered to himself, "They have no idea what they're capable of." But soon, everyone would. The sky over Earth shimmered with unfamiliar colors. For the first time in human history, starships built for war, built for unity, rose from Earth's surface not to fight each other, but to defend something greater. The newly formed human fleet, sharp and silver like blades of hope, joined the gathering storm of allied ships above. Commander Ellen Stray stood at the front of the flagship Vanguard, her eyes scanning the vast display of coalition vessels, hanging, in orbit. She had led difficult missions before, but nothing like this. Behind her stood pilots, engineers, and tacticians, men and women from every corner of Earth. Each of them had trained harder in the last month than ever before in their lives. They were ready, or as ready as they could be. The mission ahead was clear. Retake the Veyan Drift. It was once a peaceful hub of trade between the stars. But the Vathari Empire had turned it into a fortress. Taking it back wouldn't just be a victory. It would be a message. A message that the Alliance wasn't dead, and that Earth wasn't afraid. As the fleet prepared for its first hyperspace jump into a live battlefield, Ellen turned to her lead pilot, Tova Mean. Tova was young, barely out of Earth's space academy, but she flew like the ship was an extension of her body. She wore her nerves like a second skin, always tight and twitching, but in the cockpit she was poetry in motion. "You ready, Mian?" Ellen asked. Tova gave a shaky nod. "Born ready? Well, maybe trained ready." Ellen smiled faintly. "Stay sharp. The enemy won't give us a second chance." Across from them, aboard one of the larger coalition cruisers, Senkar Vel watched the humans with a curious stare. His dark scales shimmered slightly under the bridge lights and his expression was unreadable. He had fought in 27 battles. He had seen cities fall and stars go dark. He had never trusted the idea of Earth joining the war. But as he watched the humans' ships move into perfect formation, a sliver of doubt entered his heart. Not doubt in their failure, but in his assumption they would fail. The jump to Veyan Drift began with a countdown. The space around the fleet folded in on itself, and then, in a blink, they were there. Veyan Drift was no longer the shining city in the stars it had once been. Now it was a graveyard. Giant debris fields hung like rusting bones in orbit, and Vathari ships moved among them like sharks in a dying sea. The moment they arrived, the Vathari fleet noticed. Red signals blinked across tactical screens. Orders flew across communication lines. And within seconds, energy weapons lit up the void. "All units, engage," Ellen ordered. The battle exploded into motion. Fighters danced between burning wreckage, exchanging fire in tight spirals. Capital ships formed walls, shielding smaller crafts and pushing forward with controlled fury. Human and coalition vessels worked in tight formation, covering each other's weaknesses and doubling their strengths. Tova Mean's fighter streaked ahead, her fingers gripping the controls as her engines screamed. She weaved through enemy lines, ducking and rolling, firing with perfect aim. She barely registered her own breathing. It was all rhythm, reaction, instinct. Her comm buzzed with activity, voices calling out enemy locations and formation shifts. "Squadron 7, break left, hit those flankers," she shouted. Above the fray, Sen Carvel watched with growing surprise. The humans weren't just surviving, they were leading the charge. Their tactics were unpredictable, almost chaotic, but incredibly effective. The Vathari ships hesitated, unsure how to react to this new enemy, and that hesitation cost them. Commander Stray gave the signal to push. "Forward, all capital ships. Target their command cruiser. Break the line." As Earth's cruisers surged ahead, Alliance vessels followed. Plasma beams and rail shots tore through Vathari armor. Fighters like Tova's cleared a path, striking weak points and drawing fire away from the heavier ships. Then came the turning point. A Vathari dreadnought, twice the size of any ship in the human fleet, charged toward the Allied line. It fired with brutal power, tearing into shields and hulls. If it broke through, the entire fleet could collapse. Tova saw it first. "They're aiming for the vanguard. We won't hold." Without waiting for orders, she spun her ship and dove straight toward the dreadnought's exposed midsection. Her squadron followed, forming a tight pattern. They launched a coordinated strike, slamming torpedoes into the dreadnought's engines. The explosion that followed lit the battlefield with a white-hot flash. The dreadnought began to drift, its systems failing. The Allied fleet surged forward, behind it, using the moment to overwhelm the remaining Vathari ships. Within 2 hours, the drift was under coalition control again. As the dust settled, cheers echoed across the comms. The stars were quiet once more, at least for now. Ellen stood in the command bay, exhausted but proud. "Send the report," she told her aide. "The Vayon drift is free." And on the nearby cruiser, Sen Carvel simply nodded to himself. He had been wrong about the humans. Very wrong. They were not children playing at war. They were something else entirely. The lights on the command bridge flickered as the Vanguard entered the edge of the Droskai system, where shadows stretched longer and the stars seemed colder. Here, deep in enemy territory, the Vathari Empire kept one of its most important assets, a planet-sized energy station fueling their war machine. Taking it down could change the entire direction of the war, but to do it, the coalition would need more than ships. They'd need cunning, speed, and a little bit of luck. Commander Ellen Stray stood over the mission map, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. With her were a small team of specialists, each chosen for one reason: they could do what others couldn't. Among them was Soren Ilva, an Earthborn engineer who never liked the spotlight. He preferred machines to people, and he was more comfortable with a plasma torch than a weapon. But today his knowledge might save the galaxy. Beside him stood Jan Haleth, a quiet strategist from the desert world of Tyranny. He had no medals, no long title, just a sharp mind and a calm voice. He had planned dozens of successful missions, each one more daring than the last. And then there was Kaylin Myrell, a mystery in every sense. She was once part of the Vathari intelligence division before defecting to the Alliance. Many didn't trust her, but she knew Droskai better than anyone. The plan was simple in theory, but dangerous in execution. The fleet would distract the Vathari forces by engaging their defense ships in orbit, while a small team would slip through the chaos, land on Droskai, and disable the energy grid that powered their shield systems. Once the grid was down, the fleet could strike the station's core directly. If it worked, the loss would cripple the Vathari supply lines. "If we fail," Soren muttered under his breath, "it's not just our team that dies, it's the whole mission." Jian responded softly, "Then we don't fail." The stealth ship Whisper, small and cloaked in advanced tech, carried the infiltration team toward the planet. The ride was silent. Outside the windows, the space battle had already begun. Lights flashed, explosions blinked like distant fireworks, and massive ships exchanged fire. But inside the Whisper, only quiet tension remained. As they descended into The planet's atmosphere. Kalen stood near the front, guiding the pilot through tight corridors of anti-air defense. Stay low. Their scanners are focused on the battle above. We'll be ghosts if we keep moving. The ship landed deep within Droskai's rocky terrain, surrounded by jagged ridges and mist-covered valleys. The team exited quickly, their boots crunching over cracked stone. Ahead was a narrow path leading to a hidden tunnel, Kalen's old escape route when she fled the Empire. Now they would use it to go back in. The tunnel walls pulsed faintly with energy. The deeper they went, the more they felt the hum of the power grid beneath their feet. At the end of the corridor, a large security door waited. Soren moved to the panel, kneeling down, his fingers dancing over the wires. "I'll need a few minutes," he whispered. Gian and Kalen took defensive positions. The air was thick, not just with tension but with the weight of what lay ahead. They all knew the Vathari would defend this place fiercely if they were discovered. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the corridor behind them. Lights glowed red. Kalen drew her weapon. "They've found us." Gian moved quickly, tossing down a small emitter that projected decoy images into the tunnel, buying them precious seconds. "Hurry, Soren!" Kalen shouted, exchanging fire with the first wave of Vathari soldiers. "I'm almost there," he snapped, sweat dripping down his brow. The firefight exploded into chaos. Blasts rang through the tunnel as the team pushed back wave after wave. Kalen fought like someone who had nothing left to lose, her movements sharp and precise. Gian, ever calm, directed the others, predicting enemy paths with eerie accuracy. Finally, Soren's panel flashed green. "Done. Grid will overload in 60 seconds, he yelled. "Go," Gian ordered. "Back to the ship." The team began their retreat, dodging falling debris and leaping over collapsed stone. Behind them, the tunnel lights flickered wildly as the grid surged out of control. By the time they reached the surface, the sky above them had changed. The Vathari shield dome, once a glowing blue, now sparked with orange fractures. On the Vanguard, Ellen saw the signal. "They did it. All ships. Begin full assault." The coalition fleet moved like thunder through the broken sky. Bombardment began at once, targeting the exposed energy cores and defense systems. With their shield grid down, the Vathari had no protection from the fury above. From space, Droskai looked like it was bleeding light. Massive eruptions broke across its surface, and when the largest reactor exploded, it sent a ripple through the system that every ship could feel. Bakono, the whisper, the team stared at the blast from a safe distance. "We actually did it," Soren breathed. Gian gave a rare smile. This wasn't just a victory, it was a warning. Kalen nodded. "The Vathari will strike back, harder than ever." "But now," Gian said, "they know Earth is not just part of the war. Earth is changing the war." And high above, where the stars flickered like candle flames, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what came next. The stars above the planet Zareth burned bright, but none could outshine the storm brewing in space. For months the Allied forces had fought battle after battle, slowly pushing back the once invincible Vathari Empire. With the fall of Droskai, the tide had turned. But everyone knew the war wasn't over. Not yet. One final strike remained. One last stand. The target was simple: destroy the Vathari's command ship, the Iron Pulse. It was their last and greatest weapon, a city-sized dreadnought protected by a shield stronger than any known to the Coalition. It hovered in orbit above Zareth, a cold symbol of their fading power. Commander Ellen Stray stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, staring at the tactical display. Around her were holographic dots representing every ship, every life about to enter the fire. But her eyes were locked on the glowing red dot at the center, the Iron Pulse. It had to fall. Behind her, Captain Terran Voss entered. Young, brave, and a little reckless, Terran had risen fast in Earth's fleet. Many questioned his promotion, but no one doubted his resolve. He walked over to Ellen, quietly respectful. "You're really going through with it?" he asked. She nodded. "We don't get another chance. Their leadership is all on that ship. If it escapes, the war drags on for years. Terran leaned on the console. And the Nova Lance? Ellen turned to him, her voice firm. It's ready. The Nova Lance was Earth's secret weapon, a massive energy cannon buried deep within the Vanguard. It could cut through any shield, but required perfect timing and left the ship vulnerable during charging. As the fleet prepared to launch, a secure message came through from an unlikely source. Nyla Reth, a captured Vathari commander, had agreed to speak. Inside her holding cell, dimly lit and silent, Nyala sat calm. Her voice was even, her eyes sharp. "You won't win by force alone," she said to Ellen through the glass. "The Iron Pulse isn't just a ship, it's a symbol. If you destroy it the wrong way, the remaining Vathari will fight to the last. You'll create martyrs." Ellen tilted her head. "And what do you suggest?" Nyala leaned forward. "Cripple it. Show their people it can bleed. Then offer them a way out. They're tired. Many want peace but are too afraid to ask for it." Ellen considered the advice. She didn't trust Nyala fully, but something in her words felt honest. Perhaps even hopeful. With the fleet now ready, the battle began. Ships leapt out of hyperspace and locked into formation. The Iron Pulse responded with fury, firing massive beams that tore through space. Smaller Vathari vessels swarmed in defense, but the Allied forces, now battle-tested and unified, held their ground. Inside the Vanguard, the Nova Lance began to charge. Technicians shouted status updates. Lights dimmed. The hull vibrated as power surged through its core. "Protect the ship," Terran barked to his squadron. "Nothing touches the Vanguard." Fighters screamed into the chaos, shielding the Vanguard from swarms of Vathari attackers. Explosions lit the void, but Earth's pilots held the line. Terran led the charge, weaving between blasts with impossible precision. "Nova Lance at %," a tech called out. "Hold steady." Ellen gripped the edge of the command table. Everything was riding on this. If they missed, if the cannon failed, they'd lose more than the battle. They'd lose their final chance at peace. Finally, the cannon reached full power. The red dot on the display grew larger as targeting locked in. "Fire!" The Nova Lance roared. A blinding beam of light burst from the belly of the Vanguard, slicing through the shield of the Iron Pulse. For a moment, the ship held. Then the shield cracked. The beam punched through its engines, tearing a long, glowing wound across its spine. The great ship didn't explode. It faltered. Lights went dark. Power flickered. Its guns went silent. Across the battlefield, Vathari ships hesitated. Without orders, without leadership, they began to fall back. Ellen opened a wide transmission. Her voice carried to every ship. "The Iron Pulse is disabled. We offer you a choice. Surrender, and we will not strike again. Continue fighting, and this war will only end with more death. The decision is yours." For several minutes, no one moved. Then one by one, the enemy ships powered down their weapons. Lights flicked to white. Universal sign of surrender. It was over. The battlefield fell quiet. Only the sound of cheers filled the comms. Relief swept through every ship like a breath held too long. Later, on a peaceful moon not far from Zareth, the leaders of the Alliance gathered. They didn't meet in a war room or aboard a flagship. They met under the open sky beside a fire. No more weapons. Just words. Ellen, Terran, Gian, Soren, Kalen, and even Nyala sat among them. There was no need for speeches. The fire crackled. The stars watched quietly. "Now what?" Terran asked. Ellen smiled. "Now we build something better." The war was over, but the future had just begun, and across the galaxy the echoes of what humanity had done, what they had chosen to become, would inspire generations to come.